All right, welcome back to episode 22 of the Precious Metal Gents podcast. We are doing our very final run through of the PMG Parallel, concluding with the 1999 set, 1998-99 for basketball. We're going to do our presentation of the set kind of like we did in the past couple of episodes. And then we're going to have a conversation later in the episode with @Precious Metal Gems Collector. He'll be coming on to talk about his love for the set and some of his collecting preferences, etc. So stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss it. But on a bittersweet note here, let's kind of dive into the set. This will be our last PMG set, but we want to make it episode, I should say. We want to make it good. So again, I refer you to YouTube just to check this out. We've got a little bit of a slideshow here. So the 1999 PMG, some people call it the gold PMG. Tell us a little bit about kind of when it was released, Brian, or the various sports were released, and like maybe take us through some of the set specifics.
Yeah, so you had it was a really weird year because they had the baseball set released in January. They had the basketball set that was released in February, but that was mainly because of the lockout, the NBA lockout. And then you had the football set released in July that was relatively normal compared to other years of the football release. So I think the release is special with this year because things were kind of thrown off with basketball, almost nearly skipping 2 years of rookies at this point. And then with the lockout, you only had half of a season. So it seems like it was almost like a rush set with them. And they just released it to kind of capture some of the veterans from essentially from the previous year in their set. And then with baseball, they released it early, whereas basketball released it late. Baseball was released early, and they kind of skipped some of the prospects or the rookies of that year. So if you could picture this, where you had like if Alfonso Soriano was in anything, but if he was released in this and had a rookie, or Josh Hamilton, who was in 99 Bowman, or CC Sabathia, if he was released in this set and had a rookie in PMGs, I mean, it would have been pretty epic. But baseball kind of skipped on the rookies as well. And then with football, you had it pretty much a normal time of the year. It's almost like they perfected the set, which you're going to see, I mean, in my opinion, later on in the episode where we kind of talk more about football. Some of the specifics about the set, you had a 125 card basketball set. There was 123 PMGs with no checklists. And then some of the major omissions from the set, it wasn't just rookies, as I mentioned before. You did have Steve Nash kicked out of the set, Weber, Mitch Richmond, and then you had the obvious rookies from that year of Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, Nowitzki, Mike Bibby. So if you could imagine, like Vince Carter didn't have a single PMG, and this would have been the year for him. I mean, I can only imagine if Vince Carter or Pierce or Dirk had a single PMG rookie in 99 basketball. I mean, it would have been, in my opinion, pretty epic. So it's kind of sad. I feel like the basketball set in general was I guess the set that could have been. You had Michael Jordan, his post-playing years set. He's in the set. It's a great-looking card, but again, it's a post-playing years. And then you miss all the rookies. You miss some of the major veterans from that set. It's kind of frustrating from a basketball standpoint. And then with baseball, it's only the second PMG set. It's a 300 card set with 297 PMGs, no checklists, and it has 3 subsets. So at that point, with baseball being the first release of the 99 PMGs, or this version of the PMGs or metal at that time, baseball seemed like they were trying out some new things. They were trying out some subsets to see if they were popular, to see if they kind of stuck. I feel like with this, they were going to use them more in football, because basketball, I feel like, was planned first, but I feel like it was released later because of the lockout. And they kind of got blocked from, and it's just, again, my opinion, I don't have any firm data on that, but I feel like they released it based on, they were going to release it earlier, And then because of the lockout, they kind of had to hold off. And then with the draft being the previous year in '98, they didn't put anything into it, and then they released it kind of secondary. But with baseball, they released these subsets to try to see if it was something that would catch fire, because again, this was like at the end of the insert era essentially, and they were trying to add some of these subsets into the metal set to kind of gain traction. So you have the MLPD sets, the on the fly set, which is decently popular, and then the building block set, which had some younger players included into it, not rookies, but like first and second year players in it. All right, so 99 football, you had a 250 card set with all PMGs. The checklists weren't stamped. So you had all three sets in football, baseball, and basketball, all featuring the 101 Gem Masters. Now, the Gem Masters in baseball were probably the best cards for all of the baseball players in that set because, again, they only had two PMGs. They didn't have the reds or the greens. And then those are most likely the first or second 101 major 101s other than the masterpieces for those players in the sets. But in most opinions, including mine and probably Zan would agree, this was the best looking Gem Masters of the two between the 98 and this set. So for baseball, it was probably the player's best card, most likely. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Zan.
Yeah, I agree with you. I prefer the 99 pattern on all three sets versus the 98 football pattern for sure. Just the 98 is very uh, specific to the lighting. And if you're in the wrong lighting, it can look too dark and the background can be too obscured. I feel like the 99, the effect is on display really in any lighting. Now, if you have more lighting, there's the shimmer from the sort of raindrop, paisley, whatever they have. That kind of patterns it and it catches some of the light. But I think the design of the 99 Gym Master is a little bit better. I also wanted to go back to what you were saying about the basketball and the lack of rookies, how cool that would have been to have Vince Carter. It makes me think, that it almost brings up the importance or the prominence of the 24 carats because, all these rookies had a 24 karat. We see the Dirk sells really, really well. And so it's almost like the stand-in where you don't get a gold PMG, but you do get a 24 karat. That's there. Most of them are in the essential credentials set too, but I feel like that's almost a sort of a substitute in a way. And then I will say the one thing about baseball and the Gym Masters being the best card for the player, I think there are maybe a couple of exceptions where that's arguably the case. Like I think that Bonds' base 99 Gym Masters is probably his best card, but he's got 3 Gym Masters in the set. Same with Maddox. Same with Randy Johnson. But then if you look at Maddox and Bonds specifically, their 98 credentials they have, Bonds has the out of 2, Maddox has the out of 3 for the now. So I think maybe there's an argument that in some cases someone might prefer, the 98 credentials over perhaps like Gym Masters of On the Fly or MLPD. But I think it's a close call when you're looking at the best cards there.
Well, I think it should also be stated too. It reminded that in '98 they didn't have a Gem Masters in baseball,
Right.
so this is the only 101. I kind of misspoke when I said it. This is the only 101 baseball PMG set. Now they had Gem Masters in football for the 2 years, but this is it for PMGs for baseball.
Yeah, and we had seen the it's like you said, the masterpieces and the for Ultra and for Flare Showcase, but we've talked about those before. They weren't particularly visually distinct from the regular legacies or even the base set, and this was extremely different. So there was a pretty much a sea change from the prior year of PMGs, and You would never confuse this with the 98s or the 97s. This is the first time they used gold hollow foil. You know, you had the red and green, and then you had the scope effect over the background, and then now you have the gold hollow foil in 99. There's no backdrop that you can see. It's the field is behind the player, but it's really obscured by the effect. And the last name of the player sits prominently at the top of the card. That's the first time we'd seen that on any of the PMG sets. Or if it's a rookie in football, it says rookie at at the top there instead of their last name. That's on the base design. And the PMG, it's embossed, so the name is embossed on the base card and the PMG. That's another something that you didn't see on either the prior 2 years. And then maybe something small but still distinct, which is that the name of the player and the name of the team are both in cursive and script rather than in print, which they were in 97, the Reds and Greens, and then the 98s as well. And maybe the base, this kind of gets more towards I say more quote unquote standard looking trading card in the sense that the 97s were accompanied by these kind of intricate Marvel comic book like backgrounds. And then the 98s had the cities and the nature and the animals, etc. And this is just like an action shot of the player on the field most of the time. So this is kind of gets back to maybe more like traditional baseball card look, I guess you could say. Some of these cards tend to sell really well. We saw that in basketball, even though it's his post-playing days card, Michael Jordan's PSA 7, its highest sale was $192,000 on September 24th, 2022. And so what I did here is I just listed the highest sale of each player. Like, for instance, Jordan had multiple sales that were higher than Kobe's best sale, but for the sake of brevity, I don't want to go through all of them. Kobe Bryant's highest sale was a BGS 9 for about $130,000, 2021, and then Shaq is a distant third. Back in 2022, PSA 8 sold for about $24,000 or just under $25,000. So you can see in basketball, as with prior years, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are way out ahead of the pack and carry the set. In baseball, it's a little bit different. The highest sale in baseball is a mere fraction of that. It's Ken Griffey Jr., BGS 8.5, $28,800. That was back in July 2023. And then after that, you have Barry Bonds, BGS 8.5. Now, this was, I say substantially less, but only a little less than half. It wasn't like a Shaq to Kobe ratio here. It's $13,800. And then Derek Jeter, raw copy. I don't know whether this was paid for, but $11,889 on October 2nd, 2022. Now, I'll say that Jeter is an extremely difficult card to get in a high grade. I haven't checked the pop report, but almost all of them I see are 4s and 5s. I think the recent sale was maybe a BGS 6. That card is really difficult to find in a grade above like a 5 or 6. And then, of course, Hideo Nomo sneaks in there, PSA 8 for about $8,900 back in August of 2023. So kind of the usual suspects there, especially with those top three. And then Nomo always seems to find a way to make high sales as well. Finally, football here. Barry Sanders leads the charge, considerably less than the second place person in baseball, Barry Bonds. I'm sorry, considerably less than Griffey, right along the same lines as Bonds. Just over $13,000 back in July 2023. That was a PSA 8. Jerry Rice, SGC 8, just sold back in this August for about just over $10,000. So, you look at that and you say, oh, it's not a bad deal if you're looking at comparably to Jerry Rice's 98, which is closer to $30,000. If you want a Jerry Rice PMG, maybe the 99 is a good option. Edgerrin James was the third place on the football list. It was a rookie, but it's just Jim Masters here. I decided to put that in there just so that people could see kind of what a Jim Masters might go for. Back in 2021, that sold BGS 8.5 for $9,000. And then finally, Michael Irvin, PSA 10. 8,100 back in May 2024. Urban's not a big seller, generally speaking, so I have to think that this was probably bought for the grade. I don't know who bought it, but presumably someone who's in the registry competition or just likes high grade cards from these types of sets. The Kerry Wood, I just mentioned this, the Kerry Wood that was on the last slide, Gem Masters, that sold for about $6,000. I think that was in 2023. So there's not a whole lot of sales on the Gem Masters out there. So it's really hard to kind of gauge the value of those cards. I will say, if you have a chance at a Gem Masters card of a good player and you need some help valuing it, you can message me and I'll help you kind of based on what I paid for the Bagwell, and I know a couple others that are not public. So feel free to message me if you find yourself in that fortunate situation.
I just want to mention something about Hideo Nomo. I'm looking for the I think it's a 1999 Hideo Nomo Brewers platinum medallion. His stuff is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the price of his stuff is just crazy. And with that sale, like I'm not saying that, the PSA version of it, it's not worth that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just, again, Hideo Nomo. His price, it's like probably 30 to 40% more than what a player of his caliber should be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nomo, and if you're listening to this show and you're somewhat new to the market and you're like, I don't get it. Nomo is obviously a huge influence on the transition for Japanese baseball players to America back in the 90s, and so his Essential Credentials now, which is a 98 out of 12, that sold for about $20,000. It's 98 PMG for $15,000. Jimmy was telling us about that on the last episode. It actually just sold in March for $15,000. But yeah, so Hideo Nomo tends to sell really, really well. And so if you're thinking, I'm going to get into Nomo stuff, I remember him watching. It's not going to be that cheap. So there's a lot of good designs in this set. And Brian, take us through a little bit about some of the favorite cards from this set and what we looked at when we were considering those choices.
With this set, it's like it's the third year of PMGs, essentially. So when we were looking at it, it's kind of like you have to search for players that you collect or players that have like really good photography in the set, because whether it's football, baseball, or basketball, it's all the same background. So you have the gold metallic background, the hollow foil background, but they really perfected the photography portion of this set. And with football, you have the major rookies in the set, unlike the other two sports. So when we were picking these cards, we kind of, we had to balance out the look of the cards, the aesthetic of the cards, the photography, and then also combined with some of the football cards where you had significant rookies or even second year players or big years of players in this set. So I think that had a big factor into what we picked for this set, at least from me. I know. So I had some honorable mentions in this set that I really wanted to include in the top 5. And again, there's a ton of cards that I could have put in this top 5. Narrowing this set down for me for top 5, I could have easily picked like 10 to 15 cards in football alone that I would have put in this. But to narrow it down for 5 cards in football, baseball, and basketball was really tough. To let the cat out of the bag, I didn't pick any basketball for a number of reasons. One, the Jordan card is awesome, but Jordan, it's a post-playing years card for him, and I don't value post-playing years cards. That's just my personal opinion. It's an awesome looking card, but it's not really significant. And then Tim Duncan, it's an awesome card. He was Finals MVP. Spurs won. He had 2 PMGs in his rookie year. There's a number of reasons why I didn't pick any basketball players, and it's not a slight on basketball set. I think the basketball set's really good looking, just like the other the baseball and football sets. I just couldn't prioritize them in a top 5. So I just had to get that caveat out of the way. So the honorable mentions for this set, it was really tough to narrow it down, but the Isaac Bruce is an absolutely amazing card. I think mostly because of the gold background, and then combined with the yellow and the blue jersey, just the action photo shot. Again, Metal at this point really prioritized the photography because, again, they weren't doing much with the background of the card. It was going to be a metallic background. They were experimenting with the gold hollow foil. They were trying to prioritize like putting the player at the forefront of the design, which again kind of leads into what some of the early 2000s and even to what we see now, what the Prisms do, where they're really trying to focus on the player image and they're trying to put them at the forefront and they're trying to make the background kind of secondary. So this is again like it's a revolutionary design for a number of areas in terms of like the holofoil, the script writing. But this Isaac Bruce, he looks like he's jumping out of the card. It's just amazing, amazing photo, amazing card. And then the Griffey. If I had to collect baseball other than the Brewers, the reason I don't collect Griffey isn't because I don't like him. He was probably the number one player that I watched and essentially worshipped when I was a kid, as most '90s kids do. He's just really expensive for me to collect, and my Brewer fandom just kind of outweighs what I would want to do with him and what I could pay for his cards that I would want. So if I had to pick a card out of this set, it would be the Griffey. I just can't put it ahead of some of the other 5 cards that I'll pick. So the Griffey card in this set is just amazing. That's why I have it here as an honorable mention. Then the Freeman I do have. It's just a really cool card. Cool card. He's got a white jersey, a away jersey. He's scoring a touchdown in this photo. It's just an awesome card. It's always been one of my favorites from the set. The number 5 that I have for this top 5 list is the Jeff Jenkins. And most people would think me saying Jeff Jenkins is a top 5 in this set is crazy. And I understand that. But as a Brewer fan, he was the best player at the time. This is his one and only PMG. It's probably his best card of the 90s, other than if it was the Gem Masters. It's a great photo. He's an exceptional player, and I think he's an underrated player in general in baseball. This was a period of time where you didn't have much emphasis on, advanced stats and things like that, where he was on a terrible team, multiple terrible teams, and he excelled. And this was, just kind of a representation of the Brewers, I think, for me. And just having his only PMG is really special for me.
All right. Here is my number 5, which is, you might be saying, well, what is this? Eric Mold's NFL PD. If you never checked out these PD cards, check them out on TCDB or eBay or something. There's the MLPD, NFLPD. It's not like the players department or something like that. It's prominent and dominant. Most of the photography is players on the sidelines, like Troy Aikman's like singing the national anthem. Jake Plummer's cheesing, like his mom just told him he could have like a sleepover with Frank Sanders or something like that. Like Molds here is on the phone. I just always remember these clips from the 90s. I don't know why it was like having the corded landline phone on the sidelines. It's such a remnant of the 90s when we have these tablets and everything that players use. So I thought this was kind of a comical choice, but I'll get serious with number 4. What do you have at number 4?
I have the Javon Curse for a number of reasons. I'm a Gators fan, and I love this card. It's the only Gators card in the set. I know a lot of people dislike the college cards, but I love them for if they're the Gators, obviously. I'm not going to buy like a Georgia card or something like that, or a Miami card. But if they're the Gators, like I have my like side PC as the Gators. But beyond that, Javon Curse, I always loved him in Florida. And then when he went to the NFL, he was absolutely insane in 1999. It's essentially one of the best rookies in that set. If you look at Javon Curse in 1999, they went to the Super Bowl. he should have won Defensive Player of the Year. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Warren Sapp won Defensive Player of the Year. Javon Curse had 8 forced fumbles. He had 14 and a half sacks. He was the most disruptive defensive force on the field. And he was one of the reasons why the Titans went to the Super Bowl. They had a run game, obviously, with Eddie George. Steve McNair was awesome. But that defense was driven by Javon Curse. I think the reason why the writers didn't give him Defensive Player of the Year, even though he deserved it, was because that they gave him, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and they just felt like, well, we can't snub Warren Sapp in his best year of his career. Other than that, I mean, he should have won it. But I get it that people will look at this and be like, well, he's got a college uniform on that. But again, I'm a Gators fan, Gators collector. It's the only Gators card in that set. Javon Curse was awesome. For a really short period of time, he got an injury and he just wasn't the same with the Eagles. But when he was with the Titans, he was unlike any other. So this is just a really big card for the set, I think. It's a really big card for my collection as a Gators collector.
Yeah, it's a cool card, man. People forget about it. I mean, younger collectors probably never watched Curse play. Those first 3 seasons, he was just an absolute animal. And then he had that foot injury, and it was almost like watching Clowney every year, where you're like the what could be every year. You're hoping that like there's a breakout. It was kind of watching that with Curse when he was with the Eagles and then eventually back with the Titans. But he was definitely a fun player to watch.
He was unblockable. He was literally unblockable. It was unbelievable.
My number 4, I also went with defensive player Ty Law here. Ty Law, I chose this because Ty Law does not have, despite being a first-round pick, does not have a 97 or a 98 PMG. He doesn't have a 24 karat gold. Doesn't have a 97 or a 98 rubies. I think when he got his first All-Pro nod in 98, that's why he made some of the 99 sets. So you see him here. He's in his first rubies in 99. He's got a platinum medallion in 99. So it was kind of like his coming out party in 98. But it's one of my favorite cards that I own. There's something kind of cool about having the short and sweet last name, just 3 letters at the top. He's got the old Pats jersey on. It's just a really nice card. The gold and that blue just look really good together. And so, like you said, when we were looking at the criteria, part of it is just what is the significance of the card for this particular player. And so because he had so few high-end cards, I had to pick this one.
Ty Law, from like an outsider perspective, Ty Law was the best cornerback in football at that time. And he was you can just ask Peyton Manning. He was an absolute nightmare for him.
Yeah.
He basically ruined his playoff history. So if it wasn't for Ty Law, Colts might have been to 2 other Super Bowls. Honestly,
That's true.
He wrecked it for them. So Ty Law is just an absolute huge player from that set, and I'm glad that you put him on there because I love Ty Law. I think it was great watching him play, and there was not cornerbacks back in that time. They didn't really, if you looked at it like compared to offensive players, they didn't really have like a lot of publicity. They didn't have the Pro Football Focus grades and all that other stuff. But with cornerbacks, looking back on them, he affected the game in a significant way. So he's a big player back then. I put Ricky Williams as my number 3. And again, another college card. I get it. But I think people looking at this set right now from this era, if you didn't grow up in the late 90s around the Ricky Williams hype, he was the most hyped player that has probably ever come out of college. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Zan, but mid to late 90s, he was the most hyped player. He was
absolutely
supposed to be the best player to ever come out of college, like better than Walter Payton, everything, right?
It's so, yeah, I agree. And it's kind of, I don't want to say sad because they ended up fine with Breeze, but the Saints had Williams and then they had Reggie Bush, who was like this, the next most hyped guy coming out of college. They had both of them and really didn't, hit big on either of them, but they were both extremely fun to watch in college. Great memories
Well,
there.
and just looking at this card, I know he's in his Texas uniform, but he was so dominant in college. And that
Yeah.
Texas uniform with that gold background, that's like, to me, it's one of the coolest looking cards in that set, where you have the all white jersey with that like burnt orange numbers, the burnt orange Texas logo, and it looks awesome. It's a rookie card. It's obviously his only PMG. It's just really cool for an iconic player from the late 90s, early 2000s. And when you think of a player that basically defined a franchise, the Saints sold out to get this guy. I mean, they basically the entire franchise was wrapped around him early on, and you could look back and say, well, he didn't pan out. I mean, he was an exceptional running back, and he just there's a lot of things you could talk about with Ricky Williams, but he was a phenomenal player in the NFL when he went to the Dolphins too. He was a great player, better in college, more recognized in college. But this card just kind of, for me, it emphasizes like what he was in college, being a rookie going to the NFL, and that entire hype in the late '90s. I think it's just a really cool card.
Awesome card. Shout out to our buddy Matt, 504 person, who we had a few weeks ago. He got this card back in August. Go check his page out, August 19th. I'm looking at it here, but he's got an incredible picture. It's just perfect shine, and the gold works really well with that kind of burnt orange of the Longhorns color. All
And
right,
I
my
want to just
number. Yeah,
emphasize
go,
too
sorry.
that I spelled Ricky wrong too. So if you're
It's
looking
okay.
at YouTube,
Yeah.
I put an extra.
You were thinking about Ricky Henderson or Branch Ricky or something like that when you're doing
Yeah.
My number 3, Pedro. It's no secret. I love Pedro cards, especially when he's Boston uniform. You know, whether he's in the stretch or he's mid windup, whatever it is. This is just a really nice card. But like the Jeter, for whatever reason, and it's not that this set is in cards coming in incredible condition, but it's not that hard to find cards in 7, 8, 9 condition. Maybe 9, but 7 and 8 is not that hard in this set. But for Martinez and Jeter, for whatever reason, the cards are really, really hard to come by. A lot of Pedro's, the most graded cards are in the 3, 4, 5 range. I think there's an 8, but below the 8, I think it's at 8, and then there's like a bunch of cards 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. And you could even see in this copy here, the corner's like missing a piece of it. So I don't know what it is about some of these guys that have these cards in poorer condition than others. I'm sure it's just some coincidence, but I really love this card. I don't have it. I'll use my platform if someone has it to reach out to me. I really want to get this one sooner rather than later. But I love this card. I just think it's one of his best 99 cards outside of the 24 karat, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of the cards get a 5. I have the Freeman and the Amon and Green in a 5, and I look at it and I really can't tell why it has a 5. Nobody really knows, but they've been getting graded lower and lower as you get the newer slabs with them. So I mean, this one obviously has corner issues, but some of the cards in this set, like they grade lower, and you really can't even tell why. This one I put as number 2 for a number of reasons. First, I also thought it was a cool card. I would have had it in a top 5, since I was a kid. I thought the base card was awesome. I loved the base card when I was a kid. I had multiples of it. I was ripping packs of this card or of this set when I was a kid. I was just happy to get the base card because I thought Charles Woodson was awesome. But talking to Gino, he's a big Charles Woodson collector of all eras, 90s and 2000s. He's I think it's cards. What's his handle?
It's like cards underscore GT. Is that
Yeah,
right? Something
cards
like
cards
that.
GT, cards underscore
Yeah.
GT. I was talking to him and I was asking him because he's got by far the best Charles Woodson collection that you can possibly have. What his favorite card was, and he said that this was far and away his best. He thinks that it's Charles Woodson's best card. It's his favorite card too.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of reasons for it. One, his first PMG is in '98 when he's in the Michigan uniform. So if you're a Michigan fan, which I love his Michigan days, and that's why I predominantly love Charles Woodson. Obviously, he went to the Green Bay, and I love him for that too. But that was a special era for Woodson. So that '98 PMG captures that. But then when you go to '99, this is one of his earlier cards that captures him in a full Raiders uniform. Beyond the fact that it's an awesome action photo. He's locking down a receiver on the Giants, it looks like, and it's just the design of the card is just awesome. So I can see why he loves this. I would have put it top 5. And then when he talked to me about that, I'm like, you know what? It is a great card. So I bumped it up. I probably would have had it maybe 3 or 4. I bumped it up a spot maybe just because of that. When the best Woodson collector tells you that, hey, it's their favorite card, it kind of bumps the legacy up for me. I always thought it was a cool card. It was one of my favorites. It would have been top 5 anyway, but when he says it's my number 1 favorite card, I'm like, well, I got to put it up closer to the top 2.
I think if I were to get a Woodson card, that it'd be that one. I think I might prefer the 24 karat to it, just because he's in full Raiders gear, and I like that card. So I used to have a Woodson Raiders jersey back in the day, but he really does have some great cards and a very loyal collecting fan base as well. My number 2, went with Jeff Bagwell. Maybe there's a little bit of I was swayed more by the fact that I had the Gem Masters. Don't own the PMG. I'd like to find that, but it's one of those that just never really surfaces. I think the last sale on it was 2018, maybe, and I don't know anyone who has one, and I haven't seen it. I'm sure they're out there. There's a few graded by PSA, but Bagwell, favorite player as a kid. I guess if I had to put a main baseball PC, it'd be him or Martinez now. So undoubtedly, this is swayed by the significance of having the Gem Masters in this for this particular card. But am I cheating, Brian, by including a pick of the Gem Masters here?
No, it's just a straight flex. Straight flex.
Yeah.
It's his best card. You just had to throw it in there. I mean, I get it. I think it's an awesome card. I hated. I shouldn't say I hated Jeff Bagwell, but the Astros were annoying back then because, well, again with the Brewers, they were in the National League, and at that time, I didn't like them, but it's an awesome card.
Yeah. All right. Take us to our joint number 1 here.
All right, it's pretty obvious. This is a picture of Zan's 99 PMG Brett Favre. It's just
Mike Baker authenticated.
Mark or Marcus.
Michael.
Mike
I don't know.
Mike Baker, the Mike Baker authenticated gold diamond Brett Favre PMG. I think this is Brett Favre's best looking PMG of all the years. I have a soft spot for the red one, the red 97, just because that's the chase card for me as a kid. I think it's an awesome card too, but this is the best looking PMG of the set of all 3 of them. It's out of 50. It's extremely scarce. I don't know of any other copies that are even available or have even come close to being available. I met Zan based on this card. It's a really special card for me. I hope to get one eventually. I think I will, down the line. I have the rest of my life, hopefully a long life to get this card, but it's a really cool card. You have the green jersey, you have the gold background, Favre in the, in the background where the metallic plate behind him. I mean, it's just I can't say enough about this card. To me, it's like a top 3 card for him aesthetically. I don't know how to rank them, but I would put this and then the 24 karat and then probably the
98 now.
Yeah. Now in that same, top 3, but anywhere you want to rank those aesthetically, this is up there. this is to me, it's like one of the coolest looking cards ever made.
Yeah, it's neck and neck for me with the 24 karat. I mean, obviously the 98 now is cool, but strong preference for things that we own. And I honestly, like, if I were to rank my top 20 overall cards, this would probably be number two behind the 24 karat. And I don't think the 98 PMG would be in the top 20 probably. So this is like, this to me is a vastly superior looking card to the 98. And I think there's definitely there's the first big Favre card that I got back in May of 2023. So there's some sentimentality too with this choice, but I do think the colors, and you can see them here on the scan, the gold and the yellow and the green, just perfectly complementary with one another. So we both love that card. You'll find one soon. Just a few closing thoughts here since we're heading out on the PMGs. It's kind of like the forgotten PMG set. The reds and greens have the historical factor of being the first, and the 98s are the most popular. The 99s are kind of on the tail end, and it's interesting. Like, that's kind of true for all the sets. You look at the football rubies. 99 was lesser than the prior 2 years, maybe the same for the credentials, you could say. But I don't think that just because this is the quote unquote worst or lesser of the three sets that it's not incredibly beautiful. It still has plenty of positive attributes. Brian talked about the transition era between these relatively new parallels starting in the mid 90s and the movement away from inserts. And I think that based on the limited conversations I've had with Gene Arena, this was sort of like, this was the final, the last dance, I guess you could say. At some point, these parallels tend to jump the shark, and I think they were sensing that the PMG had sort of run its course and reached a maturity point. And so this was kind of the last hurrah, I guess you want to say. But beautiful, beautiful set, great photography. Brian, I'm curious, where do you rank it among the three? Is it a distant third for you, close third, or where do you put it?
I would say aesthetically, for me overall, if like from what I collect, baseball and football, I think it's probably the best looking set. But if I had to pick my favorite, it would be the 97 set just because of the nostalgia. But for best looking set, this is, I think it's better than the 98. I get the backgrounds. Like, I love some of the backgrounds, but I mean, you have to look at what I collect, the 98s. The Packers don't have great backgrounds. So like the Favre, I hate the background actually. And I like the card, and I want to get the card eventually, but I just don't like that card. For him, it's probably my third favorite, distant third, distant third for him. And then the Freeman, though, again, if you like put at some of the Packers, like the Freeman is great in that set, but again, I like the Freeman in this set too. So it's just I think overall for me the football set is the best set. Baseball, I mean, it's close. I probably think this is the best baseball set because it has the first Jenkins in it. So if you're just if I'm looking at like my collection, I would rank this set better than any other. Aside from like the Favre and the Freeman because of the nostalgia era, but it's just, if you look at, I have an article from Beckett that I just want to like reference. This is how much I think that we miss in general in this hobby. We miss, like non-bias ratings of sets of baseball and football and basketball sets. And I think what happens is there's one company that just owns all of the baseball and football card industry, and basketball too. And there's not really like a non-biased, article or response to them. There's like, collectors that come out and say stuff, and there's stuff on social media, but it's really not look what Beckett used to be back in the day. So back in the day, there was companies competing with each other, and Beckett would kind of, you know, just kind of cut through the nonsense, and they would just say like, "Hey, this company's doing the right thing, or this company's doing the wrong thing, or this company is, or this set is really hot right now, or this player is really hot," and they would kind of dictate where the market would go. And someone looking in would be like, "Oh, that's an influence," but I felt like it was an influence in the right way because at the time you didn't have social media where it is right now, where you have all of the external influencers who don't really know anything about the card hobby. At the time, Beckett knew a lot about the card hobby. They knew the most, and they were really the only influence. But anyway, there was an article that came out in 1999, August Football Beckett, and this is right when around the time that the football cards released for metal, and they had an article that said the steak, the gravy, the sizzle, the potential, and what they were doing was they were trying to classify the set based on what it was. Again, they were prioritizing base cards and insert cards. Parallels were nothing to Beckett at this time. So when I talk about this article, you have to understand that parallels were nothing. They said the stake of the set was the 250 card base set, which right now we would look at that and be like, you're crazy. Base cards are nothing. People throw them out, right? They said the gravy of the set was the Star Child, which is a 20 card insert set, 1 in 6 cards or 1 in 6
6
packs.
packs,
Okay.
yeah.
Garbage today, right? And then the Kesars, 15 card set, 1 in 18. Okay. Then you had the Planet Metal, 15 card set, 1 in 36. And then the Linchpins finally, which even today is it's a great set. That's a 1 in 360 pack odds.
Yeah.
So they were the Linchpins were the last one that they listed as the gravy, right? That's the gravy of the set. No mention, no mention of the PMGs. Now again, this is in August of 1999. They've already had 2 other PMG releases for football. This is right when this set came out. Mind you, the Upper Deck Ionics, the packs sold for $4.99. The Metal Universe sold for $2.69, so almost double. Upper Deck Ionics sold for
Yeah.
double, of metal. Okay, and then here's the caption for sizzle. The sizzle of the set. The Star Child insert is all about buzz. It's 20 young players who are standing on the border between who's who and just plain who. Again, this is their pump. This is their pump. This is their pump for young players. There's again no mention of PMGs. There's no mention of parallels. It's all about the base set. What players are going to be good. They're prioritizing the quality of player just like they did back in like 50s, 60s, 70s football, baseball, basketball, and inserts because inserts are hot at this time. But again, this 1999 is essentially the end of the insert era. So we're in like a really weird stage, a gray area of inserts and parallels with this set, but it gets lost in translation. It's the third PMG. It's the transition between inserts and parallels. It's a really tough set, but it's lost and it's a really exceptional set.
Yeah, you're so right that the PMGs was just complete oversight at the time, and it reflects how uh, card collectors were still sort of caught in this dealing with the past 5-6 decades of basically just base cards. So there's hard transition. Hope you guys enjoyed us taking a look at that final year of PMGs. If you have any thoughts on the set, favorite cards, etc., feel free to DM us and we can talk a little bit more about it. Now we have John at Precious Metal Gems Collector coming on the show to talk about the set. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, we are here with John at Precious Metal Gems Collector on Instagram, making his podcast debut, making a little time for us. John, you put the kids down. I appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah, no, anytime, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much, man. The theme of the episode is the 99 PMG or the 98 for basketball, the gold PMG, but we wanted to have you on just to kind of talk about your page because it's all yours. You don't discriminate based on your PMG. So the first thing we kind of go through with all our guests is take us through your history of collecting. Where you started when you were a kid and how that kind of developed over the years and then brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, I started 1987. I started collecting baseball cards. It was like 1987 tops. It's really not much going on there, but I was a big fan of like Canseco, McGuire, Barry Bonds, those guys. So I just started collecting those baseball then, and then I got into basketball probably 98, 99. And it was Fleer basketball. I started collecting those. So I missed obviously the 86 Jordan rookie year, which is, to me, that was a ghost card when I was a kid. I never saw it, but it was always my dream because I used to see it in the Beckett magazine. And it was always my dream to one day have that card. Thought it would be like unattainable, So, I just started doing that. And then I went on probably till 95, around there, and that's when I stopped collecting. So I was right in the middle of the junk. I just got from 87 to 95, and then it was if you got in at 86, you were lucky enough to get an MJ or a Canseco Donruss rookie was like a big deal. And then obviously when you get into like 96, 97, 98, it gets pretty insane, and I never seen anything like that until I started back up at around 2010.
When you got in the 90s, you said you started kind of late in the game with the later 90s. Did you start with inserts or parallels, or how did you get into the 90s, and then when specifically did you start with like the PMGs?
You mean like when I started back in 2010?
Yeah, or just when did you get in in the 90s cards, and what did you go into right away with the 90s?
So I just started searching eBay because I was looking for the 86 Fleer, and I got a couple of those. I built like 4 complete sets of those, and kind of like wanted to go a little further. What else can I look at? And around that time, 2010 is when it was like an MJ insert craze. They just started, the prices just started going crazy. I mean, these cards you could buy like a cut above MJ for like a couple $100, and they shot up to like $2,000. And I was right in that time when I started to see those inserts, and I'm like, these are awesome cards. They're rare, and they're just so cool. So I just started collecting MJ, and trying to get as many as I can, and that's how that worked out.
Did you, when you were doing the MJ inserts, did you dabble or move into PMGs at all, or was it kind of a thing that came later on?
Yeah, I always wanted to get the MJ PMG, the 97 championship. As part of my MJ insert collection, I was, going after that card. And, I just, like I said, I got into a conversation with someone that had the card, but hadn't shown it to me. And I didn't realize that. I thought it was 98 championship. I didn't realize it was 97 because I knew there was a red. So I just assumed that it was 98. So I was talking to somebody about it, and they had the card, and I wanted to make a deal for the card. When he showed me the card, it was the gold one. And I'm like, really, that's not the one I wanted, but that's still a dope card. So I think I'm going to get it, So I basically sold like everything I had, I mean, I'm not a rich guy, so I ended up buying that car for like 23 grand. And to me at the time, that was, you know, a huge amount of money. You know, I mean, it is a lot of money, but
Right.
for that car now, I mean, you'd be crazy not to pay that, you know.
So when
So
you,
yeah,
if you oh, go ahead. You talk a little bit about you wanted the 97, 98, the championship, and then was that Jordan your first gold PMG or 98 PMG, the first one you got?
yeah, that was the first PMG I've ever owned, and you know, I just got to thinking after, you know, selling all of my MJ inserts to get this card, and I literally only had two cards. After I sold all my inserts, I mean, I had Noise Boys, I had, you know, I had the Cut Above, I had so many, and you know, selling them all, you know, so I can get that card. I started looking at the prices of the other players, and you know, I'm like, you know, the inserts for MJ are huge money, and these other players in this set are fairly cheap. So I mean, I could just start going down this road, you know, and that's what I did, you know. So I just kind of like um, dropped that whole MJ insert thing, and I just started collecting the golds.
What year did you get that gold MJ? What year was that?
I think it was 2016, no, or 2017. It was around there. I can't remember. It was, you know, it's a little hazy, but I think it was around there.
So when you got that MJ, at that time were you like, all right, I mean, you like you said, you had two cards, so it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
had
like
a
almost time for reboot, right? At that
right.
point.
I had a Playmakers MJ, and then I had the '98 PMG, which are two really big cards, you know, and I was really happy with that, you know. But yeah, you're right. It was like a reboot, so I said, you know, what makes financial sense is I'll just go after these, you know, unknown players. I mean, I know who they are, but you know, a lot of people don't. But um, you know, for example, you know, you just look through my cards here. It's like Clarence Weatherspoon, you know, who else do I get here? Brian Williams, you know, guys like that, and you know, they're not expensive cards. You know, they're you know, $500 maybe now, and they're just awesome. You know, so I mean, they're embossed, they're gold, they're shiny, they're numbered. So I mean, I know they're not these amazing players, but they still bring something. You know, it's they something that brings joy to my, you know, for me. You know.
Do you have a favorite year of PMG? Are the golds your favorite, or do you like the other ones better?
Um, I think I do love the golds, and you know, I love the '97 champs, probably my favorite, but they just got so crazy in price. You know, I mean, they're absurd now. I mean, common players are like $3,000. You know, who there's not many people that have the money just to be, you know, picking those cards up, you know, all the time. And you know, I mean, I could get a couple of them, but I'm not I'm not looking to spend that much money. I'm okay with the I love the golds. I mean, they're a close second. So, you know, I'm okay with that.
So you know, 2016, you buy the MJ, and then you start acquiring some of these maybe smaller name players in the
Yep.
PMG. So it's almost like that sort of marked a sea change in your collection from MJ player collector almost
Yep.
into parallel collector, set collector for these PMGs. So
Right.
when did that sort of, I mean, obviously there's that shift. When did you start to expand into baseball and football, the other sports that had PMGs?
So, you know, like I said, the prices started to go up. So I try to just look ahead a little bit. I try to always look ahead and see if I can figure out, you know, what is, you know, what is going to be the next thing that people are going to get before they get it, you know. So I started to think, well, maybe, you know, I could start picking up the baseball when people are all focused on basketball. You know, I'll go after football and baseball, and you know, I did that. You know, and I picked up a bunch of them, and I got them fairly cheap. But then I'd end up moving them to, you know, there's a lot of these rich guys, they'll pay anything, and I'll end up moving, a handful of them and using that money to invest into my gold set, you know.
I was going to say, are you using them for trade bait or for other things to improve
Uh,
the basketball? Like, is that your top priority?
it's not like the number one goal, but it's an opportunity that I felt like I had to take advantage of, I mean, yeah, I did. I was trying to, get the cards. I'm trying to like build as much as I can for as cheap as I can. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a rich person, so I can't just be throwing thousands of dollars into sports cards. So, for me, the best way to do it is, to try to find, diamonds in the rough and then turn them around and, and build my collection the way I want to.
I want to talk about in a second, talk about the MJ Champ PMG, but before getting there, um, you mentioned the 98 MJ, the gold that you picked up early on.
Mhm.
And you also have some other big ones like Shaq, Duncan, you have a green Matumbo. Were those things that you started to pick up early on, or how did you come to acquire some of those big cards in that
Um,
early time frame?
so the the Duncan, I remember, I s- I sold my Playmakers MJ, and I got a pretty good amount of money for that, and I wanted to put that money back into the gold set, and I just happened to see that Duncan on Card Hobby, and at the time, Card Hobby wasn't like it is now. It was you can get deals. There wasn't a lot of people on there from the States, so you can find pretty decent deals. So I got a decent deal on the Duncan, and I also picked up a Ray Allen that I think I paid $2,500 for it. And it's probably like a $6,000 or $7,000 card now. But yeah, I mean, those cards are so hard to get. I mean, a Duncan or a Shaq, I mean, they're almost impossible, to get. So um, I need to be able to make many moves to be able to acquire those cards. And it's what I've done, but it's just gotten more and more difficult. I'm sure you guys know.
Sure. Yeah. Prices have gone up so drastically. I see most of your pages, the championship or the gold. I mean, you have some reds and greens. How did you happen upon that, the green Matumbo?
So the Green Matumbo is a funny story. I always like go on eBay and I refresh and try to find the new listings, and that's gotten harder and harder because there's so much more competition now with people doing that. Um, it wasn't as when I started doing that, it wasn't a lot of people. There were a lot of people, no, but not as many as today. So you can get cards. And one morning I just I'm up early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning, and I was brushing my teeth, and I just hit refresh, and I saw you know Matumbo Green, and it was like 4,800 starting bid or best offer, and I just offered 10 grand, and it just auto accepted. It didn't even like it just went, you win and pay now. So I was like, whoa, this is a $20,000 card. I just, as long as I get it, and as long as it's not trimmed, or something wrong with it, if there's no coloring on it, and the guy didn't ship it for like 3 days. So I reached out to him, and I'm nervous. I'm like, what's going on? 3 days is a long time for a $10,000 card. So I reached out to him. He's like, "Oh, no, no, I'm gonna ship it. Don't worry." And he's like, "I got a lot of other offers over the 10 grand after." He's like, "But I had a auto accept for a certain amount," and he's like, "I'm gonna stand in my word, and it's gonna go to you." So that made me really happy, and I just asked him, I'm like, how'd you get the card? And he said that a neighbor of his, um, she was an older woman, and her son had passed, and he was a collector, and he had a box of cards, and she knew that he liked cards, the neighbor, so she just gave him the box when he started going through the box, and it was in there. So
Wow.
yeah, crazy. I mean, these cards are just, you never know where they're gonna pop up. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And to get that card in the mail, I was just like, wow. I mean, I never thought I'd have something like this. It's just pure like luck, and everything had to fall together. The offer just accepted, and those things don't happen. I mean, you make offers on eBay and you sit there for a day before the guy decides if he's going to accept or not. And you never know. And most of the time I lose them. I mean,
Right.
I probably lose 95% of the options I participate in. So, to win that one was I always say it's a win for the little guys,
Yeah.
because, the big dogs are always, they're always buying every card, and they have all the money, and they could buy whatever they want. And, when the little guy comes up with a big card, it's a good feeling.
Those
For
stories
sure.
always
Yeah.
interest me. The one that you just mentioned about the lady next door just giving away the box of cards, because a couple episodes ago we were talking about how many of these PMGs do you think are floating around. You look at the pop report and you kind of see how many are graded, but you don't really know, is the full print run out there? Is it less? And like, where are some of these cards? Like you mentioned, the basketball cards are really tough to find. Like, where are they hiding? Are they hiding in collections overseas? Are they in boxes in a older woman's basement? Like this, like
Right.
the stuff just really interests me. It's like a mystery where some of these things are. So I like hearing stories like that.
No, I do too. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. How do you see the direction of your PMG collection going forward? Are you going to start picking up, some other cards of the other sets, or are you going to get kind of more focused on specific ones for the 98 still, or how you see that happening?
Um, so I've recently kind of came to terms with the fact that I'll probably never be able to complete this gold set. I mean, I probably have like 50 or so, but I mean, to get 123 of them, I mean, it's really, really difficult. And I've had so many that I've had to give up, um, to other collectors that, just like I said, they have the money. These guys just have way more money than me, and they want these cards, and I'd have to like gut my set so many times to like help other people collect their set, because they have the money, they have the funds, they can just keep going and buying them. So I'm saying to myself, I bought this card for $200. They're going to give me 1,500 for it. Okay, you can take it, and I'll find another one. And so I kind of still have a hope that I'll eventually finish it, but I probably won't. So I started to buy other things. I'm starting to pick up, like, I got a couple of rubies, and the baseball PMGs. I started a little bit more picking up more of those, and just feel like I don't really have a solid direction. I'll just grab whatever is a decent deal, and that I can turn around maybe into something better. So not like a set direction, just you know just trying to find good deals and make good decisions, and build it that way.
Before we get into your top five, I mean, I think there's sort of a culmination point of your collection when, back in, I guess it was June, you finally added, after, I think you said, after 10 years of looking for the MJ Champ PMG, you finally added it to the collection.
Mm,
Beautiful copy,
yeah.
PSA 7. Tell me about that. There it is. Amazing. I mean, just an incredible card. Uh, tell me the story. How did you come upon it? What did you have to give up? Take me through that.
So there was a collector that I followed on Instagram. I think his username was MJ and the Kid Collector. So he did Ken Griffey Jr. and an MJ, and I saw the card in his collection, and he was putting it up for trade, and he was looking for MJ inserts, big ones. He was looking for jambalaya, and I had the playmakers, and at the time I think the last sale for that playmakers was like $75,000 or something like that. So I said, can we make something work with this card and maybe some other cards? And he was into it. He said, yeah, we can do that. And I said, I'm going to think about it for a little bit. And it just got, somebody just snatched it up, before I can complete the deal. And then the card went to that collector, and he resubmitted it because it was in the BGS holder, and he submitted it to PSA, and it's in the holder it's in now. And then he ended up selling it to another collector that was collecting the whole set, the Champ set, and he ended up winning on auction a PSA 8 championship. So now he has two of them. And he was also collecting the gold set. So he reached out to me because I had some really big gold cards, and he wanted the cards. And I said, for me to give up these cards, these gold cards, I mean, it was a Gary Payton, and it was a Charles Barkley PSA 8. Those are big cards, and the MJ gold. And I said, for me to give up those cards, it's going to have to be something really special, because these mean a lot to me. So he didn't say anything at that time, but he got back to me maybe a few months later, and he said, how about we do this? You give me those cards and some cash, and I'll give you the champ. So I thought about it for like a week, because I knew that was going to, getting rid of that MJ. I mean, even the Gary Payton, you take that card away, because that card's like a ghost. Like you don't see those. If you go around and look on Instagram, I bet you couldn't find another one besides the one that's on my page. I mean, they're impossible to find. And so I ended up making the deal, because I just felt like it was too big of an opportunity to pass up. I mean, I said, I don't think I can let this get away from me this time. I know I'm giving up a lot. I'm giving up my other MJ PMG, which is a huge card, but what I'm getting in return is pretty special. And if it ever came down to it, if I kept collecting the golds and it came down to it and I needed the MJ, I could use this card to get that MJ, plus cash, so I can always make it happen if I had to. So I just felt like, let me get it now. And, if I ever have to cross that bridge one day, I'll do that then, so that's how that played out. And, I'm happy I did it, because, it's a special card. And, that's the one that I wanted when I first started looking at the MJ PMGs. That's the one I wanted originally. So that ultimately was a factor also. I just said, the goal just was kind of an accident, so
Yeah.
that's why I just said, screw it. I got to do it.
That's incredible. The accident that happened, like the first big card that you made the deal for, was kind of what got you the card that you were originally looking for, right? That's like,
yeah,
there's like poetry in that.
Yeah, he showed it to me, and I was like, it's not the one I wanted, but I'll take it anyways. I mean, it's a really good card.
Yeah.
What doesn't get stated enough when people do the consolidation projects, Zane and I are trying to, we try to better our collection. Sometimes, obviously, we have to sell or consolidate cards. I think what often gets missed in that process is people talking about the cards that went into the card that you just got, because everybody's happy when they finally sell off and consolidate a few cards to get, the big card. But then people don't hear the stories about what you've done, what you've put into that card that you got. And it's cool to hear your story
Right.
about, you know, the other great cards that you put in to get this. It was a process.
Yeah, I mean, all the cards that I've gotten, I've had so many. I mean, that Barkley, to get that Barkley PMG, I had a 97 Shaq credentials that I traded straight up for that Barkley, and that Barkley was raw, so I didn't know what it was going to come back as, and then the Gary Payton I bought, I think I paid like $16,000 for it. That's a bunch of money, and it's just such a difficult card to find that I probably would have paid 20, if I had to. And to get the 20, I mean, I don't just have an extra 20 grand to buy a card. I had to sell off cards to get it. And some of the cards I let go, I said, I feel like I'll get them back eventually, but the Gary Payton, you're never gonna find it.
All right. So take us through your top five, because obviously we talked about the Jordan Champ, but it doesn't have to necessarily be in order, but you can 5 down to 1 or however you want to do it. But I want to get
I
your
mean,
top 5 in
yeah, I
your
mean,
collection.
they're all going to be PMGs, of course.
Sure.
So the top one, obviously, it's the MJ, and let's see. I say my second is probably that Shaq. I don't know if you guys can see it, but and I got the Rodman. That's a nice one too. Obviously, the Duncan we talked about, and I got a KG. It's only authentic, but still a nice card. And a couple other ones here. I got a Hill and a Ray Allen, pretty nice ones. And those are my favorites right now. Um, so I just got this one not too long ago. I haven't graded it yet, but Patrick Ewing. So I haven't graded that one yet, but it looks pretty nice. Hoping I get a 7.
That Grant Hill's really cool with the color, the gold background, and then I think he's got the green, kind of like the greenish pistons on the
Yeah,
right.
the greenish bluish. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I love about this card is it's the card on the box. Like you see the box, like that's the one you see. For the Metal Universe box, it's so cool. And then you get that sample. Have you guys seen the sample card? It's like a big giant Grant Hill, and it looks like this one. So I just always thought that was cool that it was on the front of the box.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that stuff. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for that you kind of want to, if people are out there who are listening and have it, reach out to you with it?
Um. So right now, I mean, nothing really in particular. I mean, any of the goals I don't have, I'm always interested in. If the price is right, I'm not looking to pay like unless it's something really special, like maybe Allen Iverson or something like that. For the 98, if for something were that like come across, for whatever, I don't want to put a number out there and then have people contact me, but I'd pay a little bit more for something like that. But the rest of the guys, I'm patient enough to, if they come up, I'll put a strong offer in or what I think is fair, and if I don't get it, then try again tomorrow. No big deal.
All right. Well, you know where to find John. He's at Precious Metal Gems Collector on Instagram. Give him a follow. Reach out if you have any questions about PMGs. John, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem, guys. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to John for coming on and talking about his collection and his quest for the gold basketball PMGs. It's cool to have a collector who specifically targets that set, because you don't see a ton of people who target the golds in particular. So thanks again to John. Check him out on Instagram. Brian, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming next week, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing the reoccurring segments with the card of the week, and then obviously the listener questions. So if you have any questions or any topics or anything that you want us to discuss starting next week, just send them our way on Instagram. One thing to mention too about as we close up the PMG series here, that 98 set for basketball or the 99 for baseball and football is really a good entry point to get into. And I think it's, we mentioned in this episode that it's kind of often overlooked. It's like, the third one. So people just, but just inherently kind of forget about it maybe, or they just kind of focus on the first one, or even the circle design, when the scope design, the championship in basketball. But it's a good entry point for any collector if you want to look at getting into PMG collecting. You can find a lot of decent deals in all the sports for those PMGs, and they're just great looking cards. Just really aesthetically appealing. So it's a good thing to, hopefully explore that and start collecting PMGs if you can, and that's something that fits you. So
yeah, we love that. We're big fans of the 99 PMGs. Again, if you want something that's maybe more exclusive than a red that has 135 copies, but you don't want to pay up for a 98, can't pay up for a green, check out the 99s. We will be back next week. Like I said, recurring segments, a little bit of a return to normalcy. I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of mini series on PMGs. If you have any thoughts about PMGs, or if you want to talk about them, reach out to us on Instagram. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.